Good afternoon, everybody. I hope everyone is well on this fairly grey in Essex morning, or afternoon now, actually. It's gone very quickly. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today on Brand Workshop. I'm going to be joined by Sally of Saltoria Marketing, so I'm just going to spotlight Sally as well. Today's session is all about how we use brand values in our business to gain more credibility, gain more clients, and to make our place in the world. So, hi, Sally, how are you?
Hello, hi everyone. What's today? Happy Wednesday. Happy
I don't
Wednesday,
know.
yeah.
Don't know. Brilliant. Okay, we are spotlighted. I think we are all good. A few housekeeping notes and introductions. So, for those that don't know me, my name is Emma Goode. I'm the founder of digital marketing agency 24 Fingers. We help people all over the world add extra digits to their bottom line through social media, email, SEO, lead generation, and everything in between. And while we do all of that, what we don't do a lot of is brand values. Hence why I've asked expert Sally Soto Marketing to present today's workshop, because she is Mrs. Brand,
Yes.
amongst other things. So I'm a big believer in kind of getting the right person to do the right job. So over to you, Sally, and then we'll kick off.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much. I can see a few familiar people in the audience. Hey Claudia, she's one of my old colleagues. Nice to see you attended. But yeah, lovely to see you all. And yeah, hopefully this will be a really good session and nice and interactive as well. So I think yeah, Emma's going to kind of like chat with me and interrupt me casually. But also we're going to be encouraging questions throughout the session, but also we'll have some time afterwards to ask all your in-depth questions, or if you've got any comments or either just want to talk about anything as well, we'll have some space to do that at the end. So yeah, I just need to get my presentation up. Apologies. So I'm just going to be faffing for a little minute.
Okay,
And
I'm going to ask the first question in chat. I would really love to know, do you have your brand values formalized? Are they written down? Are they in your head? Are they something that you've never thought of? Are they something that you've been thinking about constantly? No matter what stage of the business you're at, it would be wonderful to know in chat kind of where you are with your brand values while Sally gets ready.
there we go. Just double checking, Emma. Does that all look good to you? Does that all look fine?
Perfect. So you're,
Amazing.
I'm gonna take myself off spotlight and yeah, over to you.
Amazing. Cool. So yeah, thank you so much, Emma, and thank you so much for letting me be involved and also for yeah, letting me kind of host this amazing session. So yeah, we've got lots of time and yeah, there definitely is time throughout for questions and also afterwards. So yes, let's start off. So how to build a brilliant business using brand values. So we've got quite a lot to talk about here. And of course, this could be, many a session if we were going to do it, in a real life scenario. So it's quite a lot of kind of condensed information, but I think you're still going to get loads of value out of it. And you can obviously take screen grabs and take notes. And I'd be happy to talk to any of you afterwards if you want to discuss things in more detail. But just as a little kind of reminder, in reality, if we were going to create your brand values as a kind of exercise for your organization, it would probably take, a few hours over a few meetings. But yes, hopefully this will give you some inspiration and some food for thought and a good place to start. So what I thought would be really good was to just kind of give us a little bit of context, add a little bit of depth to the discussion, and just really, really remind ourselves what actual brand values are. So this might seem quite basic, but I think it's really good to just remind ourselves why this is important and what they are, because, we can get them mixed up with all other types of things like, objectives and goals and mission statements and vision statements. So just wanted to kind of bring this down to earth and give you a little bit of, clarity on what we're going to talk about today. So your brand values are basically the beliefs, philosophies, or principles that drive your business. It could be that you have you're a solo business, or, you work independently, but, your business as an independent person or as a wider organization. Your brand values are basically the foundation you need to help you grow. So they give you that clarity and that bigger picture kind of approach in terms of what you're thinking. And really, what I believe is they're kind of the rule book for your success. So they're the standards you follow in terms of your pursuit for your mission and your vision. So they help you kind of set your boundaries. They give you, that kind of rule book to abide yourself by to make sure you're in line and you're consistent with what you're doing. They influence loads of things across your business. So they can influence everything in terms of your branding, in terms of your visual brand, but also your verbal brand in terms of like your tone of voice and messaging and how you interact with your customers and your internal stakeholders and all your kind of partners, and also your general culture, I guess, and your kind of wider business objectives. And they, generically help you, stay aligned in terms of your wider identity, and then remind you how to be authentic during tricky times. So yeah, I guess they're like a little rule book of your brand personality, your brand objectives, to kind of keep you on level and keep you on a consistent front. So
I was
that's
gonna,
yeah,
I
go
was,
for it, go for it.
I was going to say on this one, I think in the pandemic, I noticed this a lot where people saying, oh, should we post in the pandemic? What should we say in the pandemic? We don't want to appear salesy. Should we stop on social media during the pandemic? And we had to do quite an education piece. Going, actually, it's all right to carry on posting, but be mindful, be cognizant of kind of what's going on in the wider world. And I know that we'll talk about keeping a team kind of on one track, as it were, so that everything feels consistent. And I know we're also going to be talking about authenticity and kind of comfort zones and all of that. But I think that knowing that, formalizing it, and having a structure really takes the angst and the stress and the pressure of, oh, what to post, how to say it, do we say it, those question marks that every business owner has.
Yeah, no, I really agree. And I think the pandemic in particular, there were so many big issues happening around that time, with things like Black Lives Matter. And, there was a lot of big systematic things happening in the world. And I do think, some brands maybe just had a knee-jerk reaction thinking they had to say things, or they had to kind of be saying aligned with things, otherwise it would make them not look wholesome or decent. But I think it's about knowing if it's suitable and if it's relevant for you to say. You don't always have to be part of a conversation. So, knowing that what you do is, standalone, and you don't always have to be aligned with these things.
That's a really good point, especially about national days. So I was talking to a client last week about, should we commemorate International Women's Day? And for that particular brand, it wasn't 100% appropriate. And it just felt like we were kind of not jumping on a trend, but saying something for the sake of saying it. Or, if we don't say something, does it feel like by omission we're guilty of not supporting women? And I think that strategy of how you treat national days, what is appropriate, what adds value, what is relevant, is super important.
Yeah, and I think just reminding yourself as well, by not putting something on social media, it doesn't mean you're sexist or racist. Like you don't have to be saying something in an external way. It's more about what you're doing behind the scenes and what your values are, internally, and how you work with these people. So yeah, it is a lot of pressure, and I can understand that, but yeah, being mindful, I think it's important. So yeah, brand values are essential for any business to succeed. So just a little reminder, that's why we're here. So why is this important? Some people, if you're not in marketing or you're not in brand, or maybe you're not in kind of personal development or HR, this might seem a bit, abstract, or might seem a bit arbitrary, but it is really important for anyone who is, working in an organization that they want to succeed. Depending on whatever, role you have, it's really important for you to know about your brand values. And especially if you have your own business, it's just essential. So let's just remind ourselves why this is important. So yeah, depending on the kind of, breadth or depth of your organization, you might have staff, you might have freelancers, and the values impact basically experience you deliver with your employees, and the relationship that you develop with all your colleagues and all your partners and shareholders. So yeah, it's kind of like the template, the personality kind of template for you to have those conversations and, have those successful relationships, essentially. They, as we've just mentioned before, they help you stay focused and ensure you stick to your chosen goals, which I think is really, really important. And they represent your brand promise. So, it's very much about like what you externally want to bring to every, the situation, and what you externally want to portray as a brand. And, you need to be continuously representing this as you, develop and enhance your brand. They are the maker of your internal culture as well. So I think it's really important for us to think about both the external and internal elements here. So they must be achievable and realistic. So, whilst it's great to be ambitious and to have loads of aspirational kind of plans, think about what you can actually do and what's achievable and what's realistic and, relevant for your brand. Again, like we've just said, you don't have to do everything. You can't save the world single-handedly, but what do you want to do in your corner of the world to kind of make an impact and to make a positive difference?
Sally, I was just going to say these things can change as well. What you choose on
Mm.
day isn't going to be the same as what you have in day 1,000, is it?
Yeah, and I think that's really important as well to like not feel like, oh my goodness, I have to stick to these, and then you become almost too committed to them that it becomes, backwards. I think they will develop and they will kind of evolve as you go, and even if that happens like every year or every 2 years, that's fine. I think, the nature of the current climate, things are changing quite fast, and we have to adapt our businesses, sometimes very quickly. So I think that is okay to change them. I also think when you create them, maybe thinking about that as well. So making, values that are quite broad and quite all-encompassing will help you kind of see the, go through the change that you're going to make. So yes. So how do we define the right brand values? So we've talked a lot just about the importance and, what they are and how they can be relevant and really important. And, hopefully really just give you guidance and clarity and, help you feel positive about what you're doing. But how do we actually define the right brand values? So there are some big questions here. And as I've
They
said,
are big. They are big. I can't think of other bigger questions. Who are you? Biggest
who
question
are
for you.
you? What is the meaning of life? No, who are you? What do you believe in? How do you work? So yeah, these are really, really broad, and obviously maybe they can be a bit scary. But really, what I'm trying to do here is getting you to think about, the simplicity, the back to basics of what your organization does. So who are you as an organization? What do you want to achieve? How do you want to help and support people? What do you believe in? Like ultimately, there will be things that you are particularly more passionate about, or that you're really, get you really like, oh, and get you really wired up. There'll be things that you acknowledge more than other things. And how do you work? Your customer service, your approach to working with clients, and your kind of general culture. That's really important. So yeah, these aren't supposed to be really dramatic and scary, but they're just really, nice big broad questions just to get you thinking about your brand personality, what you are as an organization and what you represent. That's just some things to think about. Do you know, Emma, if you've got any comments whilst
I was just thinking back then. Before the pandemic, we were involved in a local hospice charity, and they did a challenge where they give you 50 quid, and you needed to turn that 50 quid into something a lot more through fundraising. So the people on the call from Essex will remember that I dressed up as a squid, and I used to go down the high street and go into businesses and coffee shops, etc., dressed as the squid and ask people for donations to this hospice. And I was so happy, just as the squid, I was just so happy. But what made me happy was the fact that it was community based, that it was charitable, that it was given back, that I was kind of bringing people together for a kind of common cause. That was the bit that made me happy. And I would say that one of our brand values is all about kind of local support and being what's the word, can't say it, philanthropic.
yes, yeah, supporting people. Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
that makes me super happy. So anything that we can do on that at a local level, that will always be one of our brand values. But yeah, check it out on YouTube. It was called Peace Squiddy.
I love that. That's such a cool story. That's really cool.
I'll put the link into chat after.
Yes, I hope, yeah, maybe afterwards because people will just watch that instead of listening to me. But yeah, that sounds very cool. And actually, I think something you just said here, when you said like what makes you happy, of course we could start getting quite profound and it becomes beyond organizational stuff. But really, that's quite interesting to think about what makes you happy, especially if you own your own business. I think those kind of questions will help make you think, what would make me happy is similar to you, like working with charities or working with more wholesome organizations. That kind of helps you guide your values and helps you think what you don't want to do or the people maybe you don't want to work with. So yeah, thank you. Good story. Very good story.
You
So
haven't
I
seen,
thought, what's that? Sorry.
you haven't seen it yet.
It's a really good story. So firstly, I thought it'd be really good just to look at some examples just to help give some context in terms of what we're talking about here. So I have got Saltoria Marketing's brand values. And this isn't a sales plug at all, and I'm not being like, we're the best, but I think this is just a good example of, someone who's done it in practice and we're going to be looking at some really big and more familiar brands in a moment. But I thought, someone that's a bit more less established and, more down to earth. So Saltoria Marketing, we've been going for about 4 years, and basically we set up to help people find marketing more easy and accessible and actually enjoy marketing, and to strip out the jargon and make sure it's plain English and straightforward. So a lot of our values are very much about supporting people, about being straightforward, being pragmatic. Probably there's some similar values in terms of Emma and 24 Fingers. We want to be inclusive and speak to people in the way that it makes it easy for them. Collaboration is a really big part of what we do, sharing our skills and expertise, and also working with, wider network. So Saltoria Marketing is basically me, but I work with a lot of freelancers and people like Emma, so like creative partners and other consultants. And that's to the benefit of my customers, to make sure they get the best expertise. So, when I started, I had a business partner, and we basically looked at what gave us, the most, clarity in terms of what we want to showcase for our business. So, we are pragmatic. We want it to be very straightforward. We want it to be inclusive. And what we wanted to do is impart confidence onto our customers, and to, give them the kind of, I guess, independence to do things themselves, as well as supporting them and guiding them. So, this is just a really quick example of the values we've built. And I guess just to bring this to life a bit in terms of how I use these in practice. So community building, I work with lots of different businesses, and I have a non-fiction book club where I try to bring in lots of like-minded people, and I do lots of kind of networking and webinars. I work with Enterprise Nation, and just lots of stuff to kind of bring lots of people in and meet new people, so that my customers can benefit, but also because that feels like the decent and right thing to do. Again, I'm pragmatic and inclusive naturally in terms of how I work with people. And that could be, from practical things like thinking about how to make a website accessible for everyone that needs it to be accessible. Or it can just be about like not using loads of acronyms and jargon in meetings, and not going too marketing on people. So it can be very kind of simple things through to more, kind of more complex things. Building confidence, I'd host workshops. I do lots of things in terms of groups and helping young entrepreneurs and, students. So a lot of my passions is, helping the next generation. And collaboration, naturally, everything I do is collaborative. And even that kind of stems on to what I do with my clients. I like to say I'm like a colleague rather than an agency. So I don't want to go too much into that because it makes it feel like it's a sales pitch. But I just wanted to bring it to life a little bit in a real life example.
Sally, I just want to ask something. Typically people come to me and say, I've just set up my business and I've got my logo, and they will think that that's their brand values, a logo. What comes first, the logo or the brand values, Sally?
Oh, that's a good question. So I really, I do get the whole kind of all shiny, exciting logos, visual, artwork, and like brand guidelines. Like, to be honest, when I started my business, I was like, oh my God, I can't wait to make my logo. But really, that isn't the main part of your brand. Like, it is absolutely the visual representative and your emblem, and like it absolutely should feel like it represents you. But I would say your values should come first. So your values are, the kind of skeleton of your business, the hearts and minds of your business in terms of, your approach, your culture, and how you want to like actually go forward. Obviously, your brand in terms of your visual brand is also very important, and that creates professionalism and, consistency. But I would say you don't need to do that straight away. I think that should come after these kind of more in-depth discussions, and then it will better represent your values and your approach.
I agree.
Like, I know that is a very marketing answer, but it does make sense. And like, I really get it. Like, you get excited, and the visual side is quite fun, but I think to make sure you really want it to be like, timeless and representing you in a consistent way, it's good to not do it straight away. Okay, so we've got some other examples. You might be more familiar with these examples. So Adidas, you probably all know, it's a sports brand. They do loads of stuff, even more broader than sports items. They do events, and obviously their commercials are mega famous. Their values are performance, passion, integrity, and diversity. So these are quite, I believe they do, this is very much part of what they do, and we could probably have guessed these. I think they really represent their values in everything they do. they are built around, sports people and, trying to celebrate diversity and making sure everything's kind of, enhancing their campaigns. I think that's just, that's quite strong. They're strong values, and you can see that they obviously abide by them. Another one, so this is interesting actually, because I was saying to Emma before the phone call, I did find it quite hard actually to find some of the more famous kind of brand values, and not many people kind of display them publicly on their website or their marketing collateral. And I believe they should, and I think it should be something you shout about, and it should be something external and kind of embedded into your messaging and your about section on your website, or any kind of wider messaging you have. So I think that's just a good point to make. Starbucks, they're quite good at talking about their internal culture and their mission and vision and statements. They're really good at talking about that. They love culture, and they're very much about welcoming people in, and customer service is at the heart of what they do. They say acting with courage, which can potentially be quite generic, but they probably do like drill down on that in terms of what they deliver internally and what they talk about with their colleagues. They obviously are quite ambitious companies, so potentially that's what they're referring to in terms of growth and trying to excel in terms of what they do, and being present and connecting with transparency, dignity, and respect. I think Starbucks is quite a strong brand, and they do their customer service and kind of dynamic approach is quite clear. There probably are ways they can improve, and I'm sure we've all had personal experiences of interacting with the brand where it could have been better, but I do think their values are, it seems like they're adhering to it, and they're kind of clear with what they're doing. Cool. So another example, which is maybe a bit more fun, Ben & Jerry's ice cream, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. If not, you should definitely get some because it's really tasty and very good. But yeah, Ben & Jerry's are quite interesting because on the front, they're kind of quite fun and quite a silly brand and quite quirky, but they do loads of really kind of wholesome, moral stuff, really lovely stuff in the background. So they do a lot for social and economic justice and human rights, and they're very mindful in terms of how they use their materials and produce things. And they do a lot of work in terms of environmental protection, restoration, regeneration. Arguably, we might, I personally didn't know they were so ethical and so wholesome. So this is maybe something they could be better at portraying or better at communicating. But that doesn't mean they don't have an impact and they don't do this really effectively. So yeah, I just thought that was really interesting because that's not necessarily a stereotypical values you'd think, an ice cream brand would have. And I think, that's a good reminder in terms of we can have values that are quite big and quite ambitious and, about world change, which I think is, we shouldn't just say we can't impact things, because every little helps and we can make change. So yeah, there's some examples. I don't know, Emma, do you have any examples off the top of your head that you can add, or any, if you don't, sorry, I'm putting you on the spot a little bit, but
No, that's fine. I'm thinking, well, I'll share ours, but I was thinking of another one of Audi. So I don't know if everybody follows Audi on Twitter in particular, but Audi are very, very funny. They're not afraid to be quirky. They're not afraid to make fun of themselves, not afraid to make fun of others. And I think that is an account that is run very, very, very well, because they're super, super clear on what they stand for. What's interesting is that sometimes, especially around the Colin the Caterpillar debacle, Marks and Spencers will try and chime in and they'll try and join the conversation, and it absolutely falls flat because Marks and Spencers aren't a humorous brand. They're a stalwart of England. They are Middle England. They're where you go, or where some people go for their underwear. They're not about to, they're not about to go on and have a kind of like laugh on X with the general public.
Yeah, I think they try to be quite like bantering, quite cheeky.
They're trying too hard to kind of inject that bit of humour because they see it's working for Audi. And I'm like, yeah, let Audi do that, because that's one of their brand values. And Marx is, you go and do what you do really, really well, which is, there's chocolate brownies and there's Marx's chocolate brownies. Like, stick to that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that's a really good like live example of how, someone's reacted to something and can just like ignore their brand values to jump on something to get, more hype and more interest. And I can see how that's, it's easy to do, and you can easily be like, oh yeah, that'd be really cool, and get loads of PR. But yeah, it was kind of jarring, I think. And it wasn't, like I could imagine lots of their customers were like, this is just really silly and it felt a bit gimmicky. And it completely didn't fit their brand. So, maybe it wasn't.
Exactly. I was just looking back to what I put out on social last week when we were promoting this event. So I said that our brand values are authentic, friendly, practical, generous, and very Essex. And everyone was like, "What is very Essex?" Then for me, like very Essex, it is a thing. Might not
It's
be,
a thing.
it is a thing. It might not be in the dictionary, but it is a thing. And for me, that's being like proactive, entrepreneurial, always up for challenge, always up for a laugh. And if anybody experiences us, me, on a webinar, on a blog, or something on social media, every one of our posts should have one of those brand values in.
Yeah.
If you
That's
ever
really good.
see me write a blog or a post that just says, "Here are our 5 top tips to customer retention," just shoot me, because like we have to inject a bit of sarcasm, or a bit of slang, or a bit of humor.
A bit of personality. Yeah. That's really,
Personality,
yeah.
because
Mm.
I speak to so many people each week. I have the pleasure of talking to many, many, many people, and I don't want to be cookie cutter. Like, I want to stand out. And
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
last 2 clients that have come on board said to me, "Oh, we watched a webinar of yours a year ago, and they still remembered us." And I was so grateful. And the reason why they remembered us is we didn't do the boring AI. What are the 5 top tips to? Do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
just
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really important in the age of AI and with the age of potentially more generic content. This is about having your personality and being more you. And I know there's loads of talk, especially on LinkedIn, about being authentic, and it can feel a bit like, what does this mean? But I think it is just like remembering your own personality is the best. And, obviously you might have a wide organization, but what is the wide organization's personality? And how does that make you unique and different compared to your competitors? Like me and Emma, we're in a very busy space in terms of like marketing companies. You need to be different. We're not the only people that can do this. And the service that we offer, it is unique in a sense that our personality is unique, but the service isn't necessarily unique in terms of the practical elements. So your personality is so important. Um, and yeah, I think being Essex is great, Emma. I think it's really cool. And do you know what? I actually know someone that works with the Oxford Dictionary, so maybe I can try and get being
very
ethics as
Essex.
a word, because I think actually everyone in Britain would get that. I think it would be quite a cool thing to get in there. Cool. Okay. Well, yeah, lots of nice examples for you there. Hopefully that's brought to life a little bit, kind of how this is so useful and why this is so important. So we're kind of halfway through now, but I'm just going to give you lots of prompts in terms of how you can actually start thinking about your brand values. So ideally, I would say like 4 or 5 brand values are good. You might have an idea of this already. Maybe you've got some draft versions, or maybe you already have something and you're just not sure if it's right for you. I'm just going to go through some questions for you to consider. Not all of them will be relevant. Some of them you might have thought of already, but these will hopefully just help you kind of think about things in more depth and more detail. So, what is your mission and vision? So really, that's, so important in terms of what your organization is doing, and your values need to kind of level up with these and abide by these. Do these need to be updated? There's been a lot happening in the world. There's probably even been a lot of changes in the past year. Do these need to be updated? And it is okay if they can change. What are your timeless business goals? So I say timeless because, of course, you might have quarter goals or yearly goals, but there will be, timeless business goals that are really your like overarching goals as a company. So, for example, I always want to make sure my marketing is easy and inclusive and accessible. And that's the kind of approach I make sure my clients have. That will always be one of my goals. There will be some things that are overarching that will always be what you want to achieve generally as a company. What makes you passionate? So this is a really good one in terms of what we've discussed before. There probably aren't a million things you're passionate about, but what are your top things that you're passionate about that you really, really want to, be shouting about, and that you really are, kind of match your personality and that you want to be, fighting for? What drives you day to day as well, I think is really, really important. I think especially as a small business owner or a solo entrepreneur or solo employee person, really this is a crux of your purpose and what you're doing. And I think that really helps you, add clarity and I don't know, just that kind of focus as well. And that will, if you add this into your brand values, that will just kind of make sense. So, what I said before, I love collaborating, I love working in teams. That was something I really worried that I'd be missing from a kind of traditional job setting. So I made sure that was part of my values so that I would, keep up with that kind of style of working and that kind of way of being. Some more prompts for you to think about. What are your core beliefs and principles? This can be something as simple as you just think everyone should be treated decently in the workplace, or you think, we should all, I don't know, try and look out for each other. I don't know, I can't think of anything right now, but what are your core beliefs and principles in terms of how you approach work, how you approach culture, how you want to be treated, how you want to treat other people? What's your brand personality? This is quite a big question as well, but if you're in an already established brand or you're already working for an organization, you probably do have a kind of general feeling of what your brand personality is. Like Emma's just said, hers is quite like quirky and fun and straightforward, but also they like to use slang and they like to use, kind of funny anecdotes.
Sure. We think they're funny. I don't know about anybody else thinks they're funny.
Well, yeah.
I do, so.
Yeah, and that works for them. Like we said, for M&S, for example, that maybe isn't a good approach. So you'll probably have an idea of what your brand personality is and really how do you want to be known. And that's really, interesting in terms of like, I don't know what your legacy is and, how do you want people to remember you compared to other people? And if you're not sure, sometimes it's quite good to think, how don't you want to be known? So like when I first started, I worked in London for like 7 years and I'd worked with a bunch of kind of London marketing agencies that were quite fancy and quite high level. And to me, they felt quite intimidating and a bit like, don't really understand what you're saying, very jargon heavy. And I felt like that as someone in marketing. So I was like, all due respect to people that do that, I was like, that is the opposite of what I want to do. I want to make sure I'm straightforward and plain English, friendly, down to earth, and people that, don't work in marketing feel at ease and comfortable. So actually, by knowing what I didn't want to be, it helped me work out what I wanted to be. So that is quite a nice way of thinking about it as well. What's your ethical standpoint? I love working with charities. Emma's already talked about that as well. Is that important to you? It might not be, but if it is, it's can you commit to that? Can you make sure that's something you consistently support rather than just a little tick box once a year? If you're already established, for example, maybe you already have some unwritten core values, and there might be stuff that throughout these kind of chats we've just had, you're like, oh, we actually do that, or we actually consistently do kind of abide by that value, but maybe you haven't defined them or written them down yet. So hopefully some of this is like helping you kind of hone it in a bit and get some clarity on some of those values. Emma, have you got anything you'd like to interrupt?
No.
Yeah. I invite all interruptions. So, this is getting quite like marketing-y, but I think it's really, really important as a business to, you are there to, make money and to make impact and to, make a difference in the world. So, whilst these values can be quite philosophical and quite, abstract and high level, I think it is also good to remind yourselves about the customer and what problem are you actually solving. So as part of some of these kind of discussions you have about your brand values with your wider organization, I'd encourage you to think about these prompts to kind of get more clarity on this. So, what are your free customer pain points? What need do you satisfy? These questions are really good generally as well, even like broader than your brand values, just to help you with your marketing, your messaging, and your general positioning. But yeah, getting these right when you're thinking about your values is just a very good idea. So yeah, what needs do you satisfy? What should prompt, I've put learners, it's from an old presentation, sorry. What should prompt customers to buy from you? So yeah, basically what your customers want to, actually purchase from you, what should prompt them? What benefits do you want to be associated with your brand? What are the actual, how do you enhance someone's life? How do you make them, feel better? How do you make them save time? How do you make their lives, more efficient and more effective? How do you want your customers to actually feel after experiencing your service or product? I think that's a really, really important one because, like we said before, maybe your product or service isn't unique and that's okay. But it's how you deliver your customer service, how you work with people, the feeling you make them feel, the energy, and that kind of personality is really, really important, and how you make people feel. you want them to have a lasting kind of feeling after they interact with you. So it's a lot of information here. So yeah, a little deep breath. But yeah, hopefully all those prompts have helped in terms of just getting you thinking about your brand values and getting you thinking about, how this can really help you steer your business and how you can like use this to your advantage. I do think also, depending on the size of your organization, or you might work with partners or freelancers, I would encourage you, when you're doing this process of developing your values or refining your values, to get as many people as you can involved. And even if this is just in a kind of research capacity or from a research point of view, just asking lots of people their opinions or what they think will really help you kind of get clarity and add more credibility to what you're doing. So asking staff, asking freelancers, asking stakeholders for their feedback, what they think, asking customers how they view you or your clients, like how do they view you? Like I remember speaking with someone and I don't know how they said I was like very colourful and chatty and fun. And I was like, oh, that's quite a nice way of describing me. And I was like, oh, sometimes I think I'm a bit too formal because I don't like to swear, or I'm quite like polite. But they were like, no, you're quite fun and engaging and chatty. They're my values, but that was quite interesting to see that's how customers viewed me. And I was like, yeah, that adds to my down to earth, inclusive, welcoming values. So it was nice to reiterate or to realise that it was being, people did realise that the values were kind of being, out there, and it was working. You could do a competitor audit. So depending on what you're doing, this could be quite interesting. You'll learn loads. So this is really useful if you think, I don't know, your brand, your product or your service isn't necessarily unique. This will help you become more unique and original in terms of your values and how you portray yourself for your brand and your messaging. That is just generally a good exercise as an organization. But it might just be interesting to look at your competitors and if they are talking about their brand values, or if it is clear on their website in their about section. I'd also say exploring brands that you admire generally. So they don't necessarily have to be in your sector or in your kind of field of, experience or expertise, but general brands that you find really interesting. So, I really like brands like Airbnb, and like quite a lot of lifestyle brands are quite like aspirational, but they really, really speak to the customer. You can learn a lot from, other big brands. Also, I think reminding yourself why you began. I think sometimes we get caught up in the day-to-day and there's a lot to do, and like you can look at LinkedIn and get all like, oh God, what am I doing? And comparison, and we always put pressures on ourselves. But maybe we're overcomplicating things. Maybe you just want a simple business where you support people to do X, Y, and Z, and you want to do that in a fun, light-hearted way. It doesn't have to be complex or anything like super like detailed. It can be quite simple. So reminding yourself why you began, and why you're here.
Sally, we just had a question from Jan, who asks, lovely to see you, Jan. Question was, if your competitors mainly live in private Facebook groups, how would you propose you do the competitor audit? If I tried to get into their groups, they refuse me application because they know I do the same thing as them.
Oh yeah, that's so hard, isn't it? And yeah, I'm sure there's some of you that you're not necessarily, your competitors aren't mainstream brands. Yeah, I think that is hard, and I think if you can't find like a list of their brand values somewhere, it's tricky. But maybe you can kind of get that information from other ways. So are their customers, I don't know, talking on different channels like LinkedIn or in more public spaces? Can you look at like their external facing channels, like what they do on social media, and kind of see if you can get any information from there? You might not be able to get the exact prescriptive values or the exact details you need, but you might get a good vibe and a good feeling. Emma, I don't know if you've got any opinions on that. It's tricky, isn't it?
Yeah, if you know the person that's running the group or is having the group, go out and check them out on other social channels like LinkedIn, see whether they're hanging out on there.
Yeah, I would also
stalk them, Jan.
Stalk them. And also, like, I don't know, I'm sure it depends by sector, but in marketing, for example, in creative industries, everyone's there to like support each other and help each other. And like when I'm at capacity, I might ask Emma to help me, or like something that isn't my expertise, I'll ask Emma. So maybe you could even approach them and be like, can we share kind of stories, or can we share contacts, or can we support each other? And you'll probably both benefit from it. So collaboration over competition might be a good approach. I'm not sure if that'll work, but maybe try. Cool. Okay, so just some final thoughts. I know we've covered a lot, and there'll be quite a chunk of time at the end for questions. But I thought it would also be really interesting. This could be a whole nother session, but I thought it'd be really interesting to talk about personal values. And I think this is also really good, essentially, if you're an independent solo business person, or you're maybe starting off on your own, or even if you're just, in a more traditional setting and you want to progress in your career, or you want to, achieve more in your life in terms of general aspirations. There's a lot of talk on LinkedIn about personal brand, and I think it can feel quite intimidating, but at the same time, I think your personal brand does exist, whether you like it or not. Like that, it just does exist by like nature of what you're putting online or how you're presenting yourself externally in meetings or events or on LinkedIn. So it's kind of worth it to nurture it and enhance it to your advantage and to craft it in a way that it really truly represents yourself. So yeah, I thought it'd just be good to share a few tips. This is a bit of a kind of add-on because there's obviously a lot we've covered. So I'm just gonna go through this quite quickly. But yeah, your personal values, again, it's really similar to your company values in the sense that they keep you focused during your career or as a business owner or a freelancer, and they are what make you you and what make you unique. And I think, yeah, this is really, really important. And it does kind of cross over with, kind of self-development stuff or, kind of self-care stuff in the sense of, what are your boundaries and, what are your things that you definitely would do or definitely wouldn't do, what you feel comfortable with, what are your non-negotiables, even things down to like what you believe to be fair in the workplace, what are your, kind of best working practices. There's definitely been times in my career where I've felt uncomfortable with certain things and I've just gone, oh, that doesn't sit right with me. So maybe I've stepped away or like questioned something. And I think, if you want a fulfilling, flourishing, positive career, it's good to kind of question things and to know what your boundaries and non-negotiables are.
Sally, I was
So
just going to
yeah, go for it.
add in. So Sally runs a brilliant book club that she mentioned, and the book last month was called F Being Humble. So Sally went on LinkedIn and said, oh God, I've got to be saying the F word, and I never thought I'd be saying the F word on social media. Whereas for me, because I swear constantly, most of my clients, with apologies, are very used to me swearing, and they will swear as well, and that's absolutely fine for me. Like I just don't have a problem with that at all, and it's just not a thing. Like it means that they're really comfortable with me. It means that I'm really comfortable with them. So we swear a lot. And I'm writing a book at the moment, and my title there will be a swear word in my title, and I feel wholly comfortable with that. And the way that I look at it is that I know who I'm a good fit for, and I know who I'm not a good fit for. So I don't talk Queen's English. I drop all my H's. I speak very Essex. I use a lot of slang. I will swear sometimes by accident, but always I'm mindful of other people's preferences. I'm not going to be great for the person that's really looking for a very formal agency that talking like very posh English and talking jargon and talking highfalutin statements. That is just not me. But if you want somebody that speaks in plain English with no kind of fancy schmancy stuff that blinds you with science, then I'm going to do a really brilliant job for you. And I'm really comfortable with that. And I see that in my team as well. They kind of know what they are and aren't allowed to say, and what fits.
Yeah, there is a line. Yeah.
There is a line. The line's quite low down, but there is still a line. Like we're the old, we're professional, but that is part of our personality, and for us that works really well.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. I've been meaning to write a blog for ages about like what is professional. And I think, I don't know, maybe this is just me because I was always like, I just like abide by rules my whole life. And I was always quite a geek and I loved school. And like, to be professional is to like be a certain way. When I was younger, in my early 20s, I was very like, this is what I should do. And I was like, I'm not going to tell my colleagues I got drunk at the weekend and like all those kind of things. But then does that make me you know, if I talked about getting drunk at the weekend, would I be less professional? I'm not drunk at work. Like, you know, that's what I'm doing on Saturday. And I think, I don't know, I personally have realized throughout my career, using your personality and maybe talking about what you did at the weekend, you know, does actually help, and it enhances you. It adds to your likability, relatability. People remember you. You know, I've been to conferences before, or, you know, you have loads of small talk and you're like, can I talk about marketing anymore? And then you're like, no, I'll just talk about music, or I'll just talk about like holidays. And it's cool. And people quite often want that. They don't always want the kind of really professional, really like, you know, worky stuff. So, you know, I know we're getting quite broad here, but I think, yeah, coming back to what your personality is, whether it's your brand personality or individual personality, don't be afraid to like use that. And I think it's wrong to think it isn't professional, because, you know, Emma's one of the most professional people I've ever met. She's hardworking, she delivers, she's incredible. She swears and I don't swear, but it works. And, you know, I completely respect her. And I think, yeah, I think it's what makes you feel comfortable, and also what makes you feel you, because you'll end up enjoying things more and feeling more fulfilled if you're being more you. Um, so yeah, my final point there, like by creating your own values, you're going to be better guided with making decisions, and ultimately feel more comfortable and passionate about your route to success. So, you know, for example, Emma will probably realize there's certain people that she won't work with, but that's good because they probably wouldn't be a good fit and it probably wouldn't be a fulfilling relationship. And I think that's great, and that's, you know, works for everyone involved. So
There's a courage and a freedom in that, though, isn't there? In that, you know, if you know who you're not going to align with, again, it makes life easy. I can
yeah,
very quickly read something that one of my team has written for me and go,
yes,
yeah, that does or doesn't sound like me, and I would never use that word,
mm,
whatever that word might
yeah,
be.
absolutely,
I would
yeah,
use that word instead, and that's where kind of tone of voice documentation comes in. And it's very interesting. Like if I interview somebody, I say, "Oh, go away and write something as if you were writing for 24 fingers," and invariably I get the "here's 5 top 10 tips on blah blah blah," and
mm,
I'm like, "Yeah, that was written by ChatGPT, and I can see that was written by ChatGPT, and that's not going out for us." Um,
yeah,
and,
yeah.
and
You need to ensure there's like genuine personality and like real people. And yeah, like we could talk about this for a long time. I think, you know, there's a place for AI. I personally don't like it, but you know, I can see why some people use it. But I think when we're talking about these really like bigger picture things like brand values, your tone of voice, this is what makes you original and distinctive and different. And it is hard out there to run a business. It's a competitive world, and you know, cost of living, etc. You want to have personality, you need to be different, and that is going to be done by humans and by people that are passionate and, you know, want to be different and want to be, you know, interesting. Um, so yeah, you know, a lot of this does kind of cross over to a lot of things. We're talking about like personal development and also tone of voice, which, you know, is a whole nother topic. But that just shows you how like brand values, it is like, you know, the umbrella of everything, because it does, you know, it's the rule book that it, you know, kind of influences everything else. So as we kind of finish up, and we're going to have some questions and some, you know, more chats, I thought it'd be really good to actually just give you a little action, or, you know, a couple of little actions to do as a result of this meeting. So, you know, I'm sure we've all been on meetings or webinars before where we've gone, oh yeah, that was really cool, really inspired, it's going to change everything. Hopefully that's what you thought. But you know, like maybe tomorrow you'll forget about it, or you just crack on, and like, you know, no one's doing that on purpose, you just get busy. So what I'm trying to do here is just to give you a very small kind of realistic actions to move forward if you want to, in terms of, you know, improving your brand values or actually creating them. So I'd say straight after this meeting, take just even like 2 minutes, 5 minutes, you know, as many minutes as you can, but a short amount of time. Grab a cup of tea or whatever beverage of your choice, and literally just write down your 5 values. And they might not be perfect, but off the top of your head, drop them down, your 5 values. That might be your organizational values or your personal values, whatever you want, maybe both. Write them down. They don't have to be perfect, just do that. And then I'd say in a week's time, maybe put a reminder in your calendar, have a little think about this, reflect, and then maybe chat about this with a colleague or a friend or just someone you trust. See what they think, see if they agree, see if they could add to it. And then I'd say in a couple of weeks, 3 weeks, 2 weeks, follow up, and depending on who your team is, it might be a wider business, staff or, you know, lots of different people, or like me and Emma, you might work with different freelancers or contacts, whoever is your colleague or your wider team base. Have a chat with them, and maybe you can host a workshop and you can solidify these values. And maybe you can even ask them the questions we've asked in this chat, and, you know, really, really get to the point where you're like, we want 5 values, we want to solidify these and define, you know, what makes us different and what makes us unique. And I think that process, you know, it does sound quite simple, but I think you know, after all these kind of all the chats that we've just had, I hope you will be able to get some defined values. So yes, that's the kind of end of my little, my long chat. And thank you so much, Emma, for all your kind of additions and all your anecdotes. It's been really cool to chat about this.
Brilliant,
And
Sally.
thank you. And here's just my, you know, my email. You know, I'm not going to try and be too salesy, but if you want to get in touch, I do host workshops about, you know, brand values or about tone of voice. I literally adore tone of voice. I could do that all day. So if you want me to help kind of shape that up for you and your business, or even, you know, have you guys do it yourselves, I can do that. And I also, you know, have other services. So get in touch if you want to chat or you want to talk about anything else.
Thank you so much. I'm just going to stop sharing and open up the
yeah, cool.
questions and Q&A, observations, key takeaways. If there's anything that's made you think, oh God, yeah, I've been meaning to do that, and that was kind of hit the nail. We would love to hear either speak up or put it in chat, whatever works for you.
Yeah, and even if you have comments, they don't have to be questions. Sometimes it's just like, oh, I thought of this and that's quite interesting. Yeah.
Light bulb moments are always good. Sally, one thing I was going to ask, you touched on this, but you're documenting for a company, you're documenting for a personal brand. How do you make the two different? So I know, for
You make
example,
the two different.
yeah, I know that like 24 Fingers is very much me. I'm the founder, the sole founder. How do I kind of separate my personal values to company values? Because there is a difference.
Yeah, of course. And I do think, yeah, it can be challenging when you're, you know, a founder-led business. And, you know, like myself and Emma, a lot of our organizational, you know, brand values are probably similar to our personal values.
Yeah.
I guess it's what I would say first off, think about like, can they, you know, are your organizational values quite broad? Like, obviously you want them to be full of personality and detailed, but, you know, they need to be applicable to a wider group of people so that it works for, like, if you get new staff or if you've got a wider organization. It doesn't mean they need to be generic, but I think, you know, big and, like, you know, all encompassing. I do think, yeah, thinking about like the future of your company is very important as well. So, like, you know, I'm thinking, I don't know, I want to work with more charities, or I want to be more collaborative, or I want to be more international. That is an organizational thing, and that is more about like my objectives. Whereas me as an individual, I don't know, I just want to have fun chats about books, and I want to collaborate with like people. So it is different. And I know it is sometimes hard because there is an overlap, and I think that's okay that there's overlap, but there is differences, and I think you just need to maybe separate yourself from the company a little bit and remember, you know, maybe even think in the future, potentially if you left the company, or, you know, you maybe sell it, or, you know, maybe that isn't your plan, but like hypothetically, if you did that, what would you love to see the company doing, you know, without you? That might be a good way to kind of think it through.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sally. Any questions to Sally? Pick her brains while we've got her.
Yeah, we can chat away about anything, but yeah. Oh, I think we've got one from. So, I've had a message from to one of my friends and our colleagues. Just sent me a direct message. So Claudia is a freelancer and she's launching her own videography business. And I think she really said the personal values and, you know, kind of tips were really good, and it was really nice in terms of creating boundaries. So yeah, that's really nice feedback. Thank you, Claudia. I think yeah.
Jan's got questions, Sally.
Oh, cool. If you're a sole trader, I find it difficult to separate from my work. Yeah. So yeah, Jan said she's a sole trader and she finds it difficult to kind of have that separation from herself and her work. And yeah, absolutely, I can really identify with that and relate to that. And I think especially, you know, you're not behind a brand or like a brand name, it's your own name and your own self. That's, you know, completely you. I guess, yeah, really maybe defining what your work persona is. And of course, you want to be authentic, but you know, what are you? Who's Jan at work, and what are your values, and what do you want to do? What do you want to achieve? What's your impact? That is going to be different out of work, inevitably, and you are going to be doing different things out of work. I'd say really maybe try and define your own personal values in a work sense and see what comes out of that. You know, go through the process that we've done, speak to your customers, kind of do some research. I think that would be a good way to kind of help you get more definition around that. Emma, I don't know if you've got any tips, because I know it is hard to separate yourself from work, and I think that is a challenge. Yeah.
One way that we separated ourselves was dressing up as a squid. So I've just put that link into chat, and I think Jan might remember the squid. But yeah, that was definitely one
I
form.
definitely will be looking it up on YouTube.
That will inspire you, definitely.
Thanks, Emma.
Pleasure, nice to see you. Okay, I think we're coming up to time. Last few minutes to grab Sally while we've got her. But Sally, that was just brilliant, and I really encourage people to chat with Sally after to go deeper, because obviously we've only had an hour together, and it's a big topic, just like everything in digital marketing.
Yes, and I would say, like, you know, don't put too much pressure on yourself if even after this meeting you're like, oh my God, I don't know what my brand values are or my personal values are. It's really okay. I think this can take quite a while, and you know, have chats with all your friends or your colleagues or other people that you work with, and do take your time. Like, I know I've set you a challenge at the end to do it quickly, but that's more to stop you procrastinating or to stop you delaying things. Like, I think if you need to take time, do it, but also you probably can do it. You know, you can crack on as well. So don't put pressure on yourself.
Amazing. Thank you, everybody. We'll say goodbye. We'll give you 3 minutes of your life back, and follow us. Check out our own personal brand on social media, and I will be sending the replay out as well. So if you were busy scribbling notes and you missed something, you've got all the time in the world to recap at your leisure. Just not with a cup of tea or coffee, though, because 24 Fingers Towers has never ever had a cup of tea or coffee in their life. Yeah.
Yeah, get a glass of wine. Yeah, whatever works for you.
Vodka. Thank you very much, everybody. And next session coming up soon. It's probably going to be around finance for business, how we do the numbers as a micro business. So look out for that one, and more details coming soon.
Thank
you
you so much for all the positive comments. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Cheers. Thank you. Bye.